So we're going to slide in out of language arts and slide into social studies for a few moments. And we're going to look at AP Human Geography, which probably on the outside looking in looks like that doesn't fit. How would that fit with art? And then we're going to look at world history, which seems more like a natural fit. But I think one of the things that's most interesting is that we can get kids thinking about all kinds of ideas if we start with something visual. Sometimes when we start with an idea, the kids can't visualize it. So if we'll start with something they can look at and they can react to on some real level, then all of a sudden you can start talking about bigger ideas. And Mogama is a piece like that. We all stood there and we were just taken aback, first by its size, and then we're taken back by what is that, you know? And then you start seeing that there's these layers, and you start seeing architecture, and then we started seeing it looked like it had been disrupted, and there's something ominous and upsetting, and then you start learning about its Arab Spring, and there's these conflicts, these political conflicts, and then you're like, well, what are these weird little lines? What's happening right there? Well, in human geography, architecture, man is involved with space and geography, which is kind of how this got started. She's looking at geography and the interaction with man. And then it starts looking at architecture and power. Where's the power here? Who has the power? When you start seeing all these different architectural things juxtaposed over one another, then you start wondering, who does have the power? And you have this amalgamation of all these different groups coming together, and this is a major idea in human geography, is the bringing together of all these cultures, which this painting does. But at the beginning, I would imagine most young freshmen taking AP Human Geography are just going to sit there dumbfounded going, I don't know what that is. But if you just start pointing at some little things, and then they can do like Kendra was talking about and start pulling out those details one at a time, and then start looking at how does that detail relate to AP Human Geography, because that's our lens. We're looking at this as a geographer. And one of the things I found about this painting was that perhaps a lot of those colored strokes, those lines are movement. And that's diffusion. That's people moving around. That's human geography. We move around and leave something behind. And you start seeing where these lines are. Where do they start? Where do they end? Well, where do they start and where do they end? Do they start at where it looks clear and end up where it's dark? Is that just because we always think you go up, or did they perhaps come down? And then there are all kinds of, there's interpretations you can go and find, but this is where you can start getting kids to question the interaction between people and space and power and each other. And so this is just a fantastic piece for that, to get them started. When they come through, you're going to start seeing that you would probably want to start with some photographs of this area so that they'll recognize some of those architectural details. They're not going to notice at the beginning that they represent different culture groups. They're going to recognize some architectural differences, but they won't know what they mean. So if you give them a little bit of context before they come, that would help them out. And you bring them in and start them standing in front of this awesome piece. And like Kendra was saying, I think it's wonderful about how you have to be quiet and you have to hear it. I think this is a great piece to start with, because I think they will be quiet and they will hear it, because it's just striking. It's not like something they've interacted with before. So Arab Spring may be something you want to tell them about before, or let them kind of start figuring out what kinds of relationships are going on at this time, and then teach them about the Arab Spring, use it as a preview. You could go either way. So students are going to look for the message in addition to that. What is the message between the architecture and what may be chaos or disruption, or this smoky, it's hard to see, I don't know what's going on there. What is the message of the artist? And once they examine this piece, if you bring them here on a trip, then you would have them fill out something, have them have some questions about all these different geographic ideas, and then start sending them out there looking for the interaction between man and public space. There's all kinds of representations about that relationship, not just this contemporary piece. And starting with a contemporary piece opens up the doors that it could be anything. It's not limited to where there's a building and a street. or there's a man standing on a street or something like that. Now all of a sudden, some of these other pieces that we looked at today, you can start thinking about, oh, that's man in space, that's man in the environment, and you can start looking at it that way. You may want to give them some particular pieces to look at to start with before they start going exploring on their own and get them focused in, especially in the state of Georgia where most human geography kids are 14, and you probably need to kind of rein them in a little bit before you let them go crazy. But you want to give them, I have a worksheet that's linked to this that you'll get, and I gave them 8 specific pieces, but you could change those out in whatever pieces you love. And they would tell us, what do they see? They start off with going through those steps of art analysis. Then they're going to start linking it between man and his environment, because I want to get them to that analysis and that lenses phase. And then they're going to go to a specific piece within human geography, which starts getting them ready for an AP history course, because now all of a sudden they're starting to link ideas between each other. And so they're going to start getting ready for that synthesis idea, that it's not just this course within a textbook. You took them on a field trip. This course is everywhere. And so they can start doing that. These are the major FRQ skills that the kids would practice. There are some sample FRQs in the packet that is linked online as well, and you can change the words around. None of them are College Board questions. But the kids have to make an argument or a claim. They have to answer the question. Their answer is an argument. I am right. And so this gets them doing that. When it's a piece of art, they're compelled to argue, because who else, especially when it's a contemporary piece, what does that mean? Well, it better get a little forceful. Then they have to justify it using specific evidence, pull those details out of it. What was your analysis of those details? How did you link those details to tell your story? And then you're going to make claims of significance. Who cares? What difference does this make in the larger scheme of things? And that's part of that conversation from AP Lang. One of the things about Human I like so much is that you can see how it kind of touches all of these different areas, and it can get the kids very ready for more conversations. And then there's some essays that would be there. Sometimes you may want to have them take some paintings and do some different works and have them present it to each other and show them these links that they could have. So these are just some different assessment ideas. And then again, they're linked and you can get a handout online. And then we're going to do one more. So we're going to jump into AP World History. This one seems like, duh, yeah, that works. And I fell in love with this piece, this thumb piano. I saw it and I just couldn't stop staring at it. And I just wanted to know what's up with that. When was that? What are they doing? And so it's from Angola. And I don't know that much about the culture in Angola at this particular time period, but I start imagining what they're doing. And then I start thinking, oh, this is what we're supposed to be doing with the kids. This is perfect. So I can get them here and we can look at something like this and say, what would they be doing? Why would they make this? And we can start step 1, and they're going to write a live DBQ. As opposed to having it all on paper, they're going to be interacting with the pieces of work, and then they're going to write the actual essay based on having interacted as a historian. So the historical thinking skills that were mentioned earlier, this is a cut and paste job, exactly what it is the College Board is asking us to do. But the kids have to analyze evidence. They have to compare and contrast. So we've got to put these pieces together. They've got to contextualize what is the bigger picture this fits into. They're going to have to find some continuity and change. So it's all art doesn't cover it. What do you see that's staying along? And then all of a sudden, wait a minute, there's no thumb pianos anymore. What's happening? Why is that? And they've got to be argumentative, just like when you go back into human geography. The whole time the kids have to be telling us, so what? They're making an argument of significance. Otherwise, why are they writing about this? And so this kind of gets them going. The teacher may want to provide some background with a thumb piano, or another piece that they choose to begin their live DBQ with, or they may have someone from the high do a wonderful job like we saw earlier to walk the kids through and step by step and really drag some things out of them. But one of the things they'll find out is this has a lot to do with a very rich oral tradition. So they play this along with the song and along with the beautiful stories that they have to tell, and so that this was used over time to continue a culture. And then what's also very interesting is it's making a comeback. So you've got some synthesis here about a love of culture, and that we're going back and finding who we once were. And we see it on Ancestry.com, and it's that same kind of an idea. Where'd I come from? So the kids are going to start out with the thumb piano. You may want to have them practice talking through what a short answer question would look like before you start jumping into a DBQ. Here is your stimulus. These are the kinds of questions they may ask you. How would you respond? And they're little short. The short answer questions are not that significant in terms of length like a DBQ, but it kind of get them warmed up. And then they get to act like a real historian. They get to wander about, and they get to take in these things they're seeing. I suggest, and I put one together, having certain pieces that the kids are going to use. Don't let them just pick anything. And then that way you've already made some connections yourself that will help them not get overwhelmed in the entire African art exhibit. There's just so much. But you want them to take in the rest of it. And the rest of it can be outside information, so that they're not just honed in on those 6, 7, or 8 pieces you gave them. They're taking in everything, and they're starting to put it together in all new and unusual ways that we didn't even think of. So they're encouraged to use the artifacts that are not included, because they would have 6 as a focus to kind of stick with the typical DBQ format. And this acting like a historian will help them start understanding that this is not just a class. This is something people do. We go find out about the past. It's not told to us from a lectern. It's actually something we go and investigate and dig it up. And so this would give them the opportunity to find out what historiography really is all about. And then the assessment, which is also attached, is actually the DBQ. So you would have that there. And the kids could have that, so they could go through setting it all up here at the high and have a wonderful visit, and then write it when they get back home, back to your home school. And they would have had 2 days to immerse as a historian. And this is too many. Obviously, you don't have a lesson and teach 10 serious objectives, but these things are all here, and you can hone in on what you want to hone in on. What is the thing you would use this live DBQ to really drive home? But what you should think about is that you're kind of touching a little bit of these other things, so when you do another lesson, you can say, remember when? We also did this then. But you were teaching argument skills with the live DBQ, perhaps. That was your focus of the day. But when you come to the High Museum, you can do a single day's activity, and you've touched upon and previewed 11 different types of things that are required in an advanced placement course. And you can see how this brings world history and human geography together. And that's the end of mine.